Good evening, everybody. Welcome back to another installment of Scott's Selections here for March 29th with StatSalt.com. Coming off a little bit of a downer yesterday after a rare loss, I should say, as we had Florida State plus the 8. Gonzaga ended up dominating the entire way as they won by double digits. Florida State, we hoped, would get the job done. They kept the game close for the bulk of the second half after a brief run. But I said before the game that I said the secret to Gonzaga's success would be Zach Norvell, shooting guard, because he chucks up a ton of threes. And if he was able to hit a decent amount of them, then Gonzaga would be able to cover. And if Norvell ended up struggling, then Gonzaga wouldn't, win by enough margin to actually cover this relatively large spread. But as a whole, it was a trap line, and we fell for the trap. It happens. I knew it was a trap one, which makes it even worse, but I really just didn't think Gonzaga was good enough to win this game by the margin that they did. It also helps out that Gonzaga, as a team, just shot 40% from the floor and yet still won by 14 points, testament to how good their defense played against Florida State. But Norvell, as we said before, would be the key to the game. 4 for 12 from the floor, not great, but he did go 4 for 8 from the three-point line for 14 points. He was the key to the game. Overall, yesterday was not a great day for us in terms of the leans as well. It's why I don't typically bet NBA. NBA definitely didn't go the way that we wanted to. For college, the games itself were pretty crazy with the Virginia game as well as the Tennessee-Purdue game. And that seemed like a game in which both teams just didn't want to win because of the fact that neither team could hit free throws for pretty much the entirety of the game. And then Tennessee finally takes the lead and decides to foul Carson Edwards on a three-pointer. So, that only would have been nice. Michigan got absolutely destroyed. That game, I'm thrilled that I didn't watch pretty much any of that game. When you see 24-16 at the half, you should probably find something better to watch, in my opinion, unless you're a big fan of defense. The Virginia-Oregon game was at least competitive. It was also low-scoring, but anytime you see a game 53-49, it was at least close. But good for Virginia to finally get back to the Elite Eight as they look to make the first Final Four appearance in over a decade. As for the other tournaments that we had leans on, we were dead on the money with regard to South Florida and Loyola Marymount under. That game was played at a very similar pace to Virginia's. That game went under by 29 points, and we got the win there. With regard to NJIT and Hampton, I said I leaned towards the over 154. That ended up at 152, didn't get there. And I was right about Texas Southern with the over as well as the covering of the spread. For the over, it helped that the game went to triple overtime, but it ended up going over. As for NBA, honestly, I got pretty much everything wrong. But we're not going to be doing NBA leans anymore with the start of baseball season. How's it going, Terry? Thanks for joining us. We're going to be doing baseball leans from now on instead of NBA because I find myself a better baseball bettor than just basketball in the professional level. But we're going to go to our pick of the day here. Again, it's a popular public pick, but I think that it is warranted. It is in the Auburn versus North Carolina game, which should be taking off in roughly 3.5 hours. And we like North Carolina -5.5 at -110 at Bet Online. The game is on a neutral court in Missouri. Auburn is 28-9, and North Carolina is 29-6. Now, just for some quick trends on why we like North Carolina in this game, the Tar Heels are 5-0 ATS in their last 5 games following a straight-up win, and they are also 4-0 ATS in their last 4 games versus a team with a winning percentage above 60%. Meanwhile, Auburn is 1-4 ATS in their last 5 games against the ACC, and Auburn is also 2-6 ATS in their last 8 non-conference games. Now, Auburn is a team that can upset pretty much anybody in the country because of their willingness to shoot the three-point ball. And as we've seen in the NBA, teams that live by the three can live very prosperously, and it helped carry the Warriors to multiple championships. We also know that when teams are not hitting their three-pointers at the clip that they're used to hitting them, that is when the wheels can fall off and Auburn can potentially get blown out in one of these games, which has happened in the NCAA tournament in previous years. Now, it is important to note that North Carolina is a top 70 defense against the three-point line statistically, as North Carolina is giving up 36.5% from opposing three-point percentage, which is 68th in the country. I expect North Carolina to do a better job of guarding the three-point line. In terms of the total in this game, Brian, I actually thought about giving the over as a pick of the day as well. I still like the over. Anytime you have a coach, how's it going, George? How's it going, Brian? By the way, how's it going, Thomas? I see you again. In terms of the total of this game, the fact that Bruce Pearl, the Auburn coach, said that they should take the over because of the fact that both teams love to speed the ball up, I agree that there will be a lot of points. However, just because you go at a very high pace does not necessarily mean that you will generate a lot of points. It definitely helps. But if North Carolina's length is able to generate a serious problem on the perimeter for Auburn, Auburn's going to keep chucking threes. And I know that Auburn has hit them so far in this tournament. But that doesn't change the fact that North Carolina definitely has more length than Kansas does, as well as New Mexico State. New Mexico State gave Auburn serious problems down the stretch with their physical play of defense, as well as just their physicality on the interior. And I think that North Carolina – how's it going, Michael? Thanks for joining us. I think North Carolina will win this game. I actually think they're going to win this game by 8 or 9, based on the fact that I think that North Carolina will dominate on the rebounding edge. I think that Auburn will be forced to go one and done from the perimeter. Auburn's guards are very quick, but they don't have any help on the inside. I wouldn't be surprised to see Auburn's big men get into foul trouble early, trying to guard the likes of May. Now, the status of Nasir Little is extremely important in this game. He's been tremendous in the team's first 2 games of the NCAA tournament, and he is currently questionable due to flu-like symptoms that he has at this point in time. I think he's going to play in a winner-take-all game. He's extremely important for North Carolina's front court. I still think that North Carolina has the length to give Auburn serious problems, and the only way that I see Auburn covering is if they shoot roughly 38 to 40-something% from the three-point line, which I don't see happening due to North Carolina's long wing defenders in Cameron Johnson as well as Kenny Williams. But plus Auburn also is coming off a perfect game, so to speak, with their performance against Kansas. They shot 13 of 30 from the three-point line for 43%. Auburn's wanting to chuck the three up at least 25-plus times a game, and that's not really a good foundation for coming from behind. I know that, more points. Little did participate in morning shoot-around. I expected him to play. I still think he will play. But, Jimmy, it's also important to note that even if he is going to play, he will probably not be at 100%. Similar to P.J. Washington later today with Kentucky. He's rumored to not play, but even if he does, he will be receiving very, very limited minutes. And in that game, I think Houston could potentially be a live dog, because I thought originally that P.J. Washington would play. But as I said before, our pick of the day is going to be on North Carolina -5.5. But I'm going to also give you my leans for the rest of college basketball as we look to bounce back from yesterday's performance. But it is worth mentioning that even if you ended up losing on the pick of the day with Florida State, we did end up hitting a winner on my Twitter play, which I told all of you about, that I would be putting some baseball plays on my Twitter. And yesterday we ended up getting a winner with the Boston Red Sox first 5 team total over 1.5. The juice was -150, but I ended up breaking even yesterday because I set both of them to win a unit. And the Red Sox, even though they got blown out, scored 2 runs in the first 2 innings, and that was a very easy win. I will be uploading another baseball play there later today. And if any of you want that play, which I'm still providing for free, it's just going to be on my Twitter page. Here is my Twitter handle one more time. I got a decent amount of comments on the last video asking for it. There it is. There will be another baseball play. I've already put the play in, but I'm going to be submitting it online after I finish with this video. But to move on to the other college basketball games here. First game you have between Cal State Bakersfield and Green Bay. I linked to the over 155.5. Green Bay, very solid at home. They're also a very high-profile offense led by Cohen. They don't play any defense. Bakersfield is a little bit of a better defensive team, but I still think that Green Bay will look to dominate the pace of play on their home court, and I think that this game will go over the 155.5. Moving on, LSU and Michigan State. Realistically, I wouldn't touch this game with a 10-foot pole, but for the sake of this video, I will lean to the under in these games. Terry, I'm going to get to that. I'm going in order as of right now. Michigan State, I do think will win this game because of LSU's inability to make adjustments in the second half with their interim coach, but they still have the size and length to give Michigan State problems. Well, Michigan State has the superior coaching edge, and I think that this game will go under the 148.5. Moving on, UNC and Auburn I just talked about. With Virginia Tech and Duke, small lean to Virginia Tech plus the 7 here. I think Duke will win the game, But Duke definitely did not look great against UCF. I know that had to do with the fact that UCF had an absolute giant in the paint. But Virginia Tech, these teams have already played each other multiple times because of the fact they're in the same conference. And I think Virginia Tech, with Robinson back, is definitely a deeper team than Duke, especially with Outlaw playing after his weed drug test came back negative. So he will also be playing to improve on Virginia Tech's depth. I don't think Duke has much depth, and I think that Duke's three-point shooting or lack thereof is going to cost them in this game. I think Duke enough will get by due to just Zion's freak athleticism and the inability of any college player, including Blackshear, to guard him. But I would lean to Virginia Tech plus the 7 in that game. And for Houston and Kentucky, I wouldn't touch this game either. This game is almost dead even to me. I know that Kentucky's favored by 2.5 right now, but without P.J. Washington, Houston has looked amazing under Kelvin Sampson in the first 2 rounds. I know that I'm going to pump the brakes as they also had a Florida State syndrome yesterday where they got lucky where they ended up playing 2 double-digit seeds in the first 2 rounds as they beat Georgia State and Ohio State after Ohio State upset Iowa State. So the strength of schedule I find a little bit concerning so far in the tournament. Houston might just look better than they actually are, where Kentucky didn't look great, but Wofford was a really solid team. Even though Kentucky realistically should have lost had Fletcher McGee not gone 0 for 12 from the three-point line. But Kentucky did a great job of guarding him. Kentucky has done a great job without P.J. Washington of dominating on the boards with Reed Travis, as well as their guards. Harrow and Johnson have looked extremely solid so far. I will lean to Kentucky in that game. Will I bet that game? No. If Kentucky was at full strength, I would definitely bet it, but I think Houston could be in the line for a potential upset in this game. But moving on for the MLB coverage, game between Detroit and Toronto in a survival of the fittest game as both teams are relatively terrible, and both teams put up a fat goose egg for the first 9 innings before Detroit ended up breaking away with a 2-0 lead after a Stewart home run in the 10th inning. The pitching matchups, you have Boyd versus Shoemaker. I'm going to lean to Detroit here. I know that Toronto is at home, and I know that typically they play well in the Rogers Center. This team's terrible. Toronto has nobody in the pitching staff, nobody on offense. I don't think they're going to score enough runs, where Detroit's not good either. But it is important to note that they still have Miguel Cabrera. They still have Castellanos, who's also really solid. And I think that they just have a little bit more offensive firepower. I think the pitching's a wash. I do think Boyd is a little bit of a better pitcher than Shoemaker is, who struggled mightily after coming back from injury with the Angels. But Goodrum's okay. You also got Harrison from Pittsburgh. I know that neither offense is great, but I do think Detroit has the deeper lineup. I will lean to Detroit in this nice plus price as an underdog against the Tigers on the road. Money has come in on Detroit, so if you do trust the Tigers in this game, I would recommend taking them now. Moving on, you have Houston versus Tampa Bay. I do like Houston in this spot. It's a very important matchup for Charlie Morton, who was on the Astros and helped them win a ring, but he is now on the Tampa Bay Rays as one of those players who people didn't realize switched locations during the offseason. But he's going up against Garrett Cole, who a lot of people on the internet have as a dark horse candidate to win the AL Cy Young Award. I like Houston. Similar reason to why I like Detroit. I just think their lineup is better. I mean, Springer, Altuve, Bregman, Brantley, Gurriel, Reddick, Diaz, Stassi, and Tony Kemp. And then for the Rays, you have Meadows, Pham, Choi, Diaz, Garcia, Robinson, Kiermaier, Adams, and Zunino. Needless to say, Houston's lineup is significantly better. Plus, it's also important to mention that Tampa Bay's bullpen is not as good as it was last year after losing Bearclaw, who ended up leaving. I think that Houston will be able to get the job done. They're currently at -145, but I think that the Astros will come out focused and look to take a stranglehold early on its division, and I think that Houston is going to be a freight train in the early months of baseball. Moving on for the next game, Colorado versus Miami. I lean to Colorado in this game, but I don't have any thoughts on this. Colorado is definitely the better team, but Trevor Richards was actually really solid last year, and he has been good he was very good with the Pirates as well. I think Marquez is very good as a pitcher for Colorado, but he's a lot better at home than he is on the road. Do I think Colorado is going to win this game? Yes. Do I think Colorado should be a -160 favorite? No. No, I do not. So for that case, I'm going to pass, but I would hypothetically encourage a potential Miami Marlins money line because I think the value is there on that game. Next game, you have Peralta and Flaherty. I would lean towards the Cardinals, especially with no off day after yesterday. Hader ended up pitching, almost gave up a game-tying home run in the 9th inning. I don't know what his availability is going to be. Cardinals probably should have won that game had they not. They got off to a very nice 3-0 lead early, but it was to no avail as Christian Yelich came out, the defending NL MVP, hit another home run. This game will be close. I think Peralta has great strikeout capability, but I think he's a little bit too wild. I would lean towards the Cardinals in this game. Moving on, you have a matchup between the Angels and the A's, between Estrada and Harvey. I have to lean to the over in this game at 8.5. Harvey used to be great, has struggled in recent years since his surgeries. Not good with the Reds. Now he's trying a change in scenery with the Angels. With Estrada, he has the potential to be good, but he doesn't have very dynamic stuff. And I think that he's a very contact-based pitcher, and I think that in Oakland, I think this game will go over the 8.5. Moving on, you have San Diego versus San Francisco. I'm actually going to skip that game because that will be my Twitter play of the day. I thought about giving out another play on the first 5 innings. I do like Houston first 5 innings over 1.5 team total against Morton, just because Morton's stats are so good, but a part of the reason why his stats are so good is because he hasn't had to face this potent Houston offense in recent years, and now he does. I think Houston will be able to generate 2 by the end of the 5th inning. But the juice at minus 135, and I thought that after yesterday giving out a 150 juice on my Twitter, I would be looking for something with plus value. So I will be posting something on that Padres and San Francisco game. Moving on, you have the Dodgers versus Arizona with Robbie Ray versus Stripling. I think the Dodgers will win, but I don't really like giving out minus 160 pluses in, anything over 160 in terms of baseball. I do think Dodgers will win after yesterday, but I lean to the over. The over's at 7 right now after the Dodgers put on a hitting display and put up 8 home runs yesterday. I think that the Dodgers lineup looks locked and ready to load, and I think that the Dodgers will be able to cover that total almost by themselves. I wouldn't be surprised to see. Ray was very solid 2 years ago as well as the majority of last year, but then he ended up getting injured and he struggled since coming back. I don't know what his current form currently is. And I think that he will struggle a little bit. This game looks like a 5-3, 6-2 type of game. I just think 7's too low of a total. Lean to the over there. Borno, I'm not sure which game you were referring to, but I'm glad to provide any type of information to help you make a decision. Moving on, the last game in baseball, you have Eovaldi versus Kikuchi. Kikuchi already pitched in Japan, and he's the very well-known Japanese prospect who Seattle ended up signing. He's pretty much just taken over the Japanese lineage from Ichiro in Seattle, as he will be the quote-unquote face of the franchise for several years to come, both domestically and internationally. Kikuchi, he's good. He ended up beating the A's. Actually, he didn't beat him. That game went to extra innings, and the Mariners won, but he pitched well. Leading to the Red Sox, they got embarrassed yesterday. I think that the Red Sox will be able to avoid an 0-2 start. And that's going to do it for this installment of Scott Selections. Just in case anybody's showing up late, the pick of the day will be on North Carolina minus 5.5 at minus 110. Our record is currently 13-5-1 for plus 6.7 units. We have yet to lose back-to-back games here on the show, and we will hope that North Carolina will do enough to keep that trend going. But that's going to do it for this installment of Scott Selections on Friday, March 29th. Good luck to you and your respective bets. Have a good day, everybody.